Mirrors and Dreams, Book 2 of the Unseen Scar series, written and narrated by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 29. At the center of the purple sea was a little boat. Inside slept the fisherman. A giant grin swam with all her might toward it. The intention was to tip the boat, but when Oya grabbed it, she found herself sitting across from him. "You're no fun." Her entourage of glowing orbs danced in her peripheral. A smirk met her complaint. "I've worked with your predecessors." Shrugging, Oya folded her arms. "The diamond barrier's gone." "I know." In one fluid motion, the fisherman sat up and placed his hat properly on his head. "That's all you have to say? Then you know his soul's become cloudy." "Yes." The fisherman frowned. "What is it?" "Infection. That's what's wrong with his heart, not his soul." With a shake of his head, the fisherman leaned in. "How infected has his heart looked recently?" "Touché. I get it. How did it spread from his heart to his soul?" "That's what infections do when left untreated." "Great. Now how do I fix this?" But it didn't make sense. "For the first time since I've met him, he truly looks happy. He's actually feeling the emotions inside him." "But is he feeling them normally?" "He reacts more intensely than the situation calls for, but he's a child. That happens." That too-perfect face shook in disagreement. "He tore apart his lab and couldn't calm himself until you pulled those emotions from him." That was a bit much. But with the stressors her dear friend suffered, she was surprised he didn't tantrum more often. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing." What could she do? "I don't want him to die. If he isn't craving death, I'm happy." The fisherman's lips tightened. "The infection's still there. The problem is still there." "I know, but..." A wave of her hand summoned the silver roads. "I can't change that." "So you'll ignore it." Hand squeezing her little cord of silver strands, Oya frowned. There wasn't much she can do until she figured out this new problem. But until then, she had other work to do. "I said I'd keep all my promises, didn't I?" The fisherman nodded sadly, but he didn't say anything more. Neither did he stop her when she stepped onto the silver roads. One road after another passed quickly. Soon she stood in the Kajoma's mind. It seemed this woman slept as much as her friend. On the other side of those curtains was more of what she didn't want to see, but she had to. It was her responsibility. The new set of victims wasn't surprising, but recognizing them was. Fire burned her insides. Tano. When did she find them? The boy protecting his sister. Why didn't I think? But her rounds were interrupted. She couldn't have known the position that boy held or what he knew. It was her duty to, but... Oya screamed at her uselessness, her limitations. If there was anything to break, what was the point of being? Clenching her jaw, she studied every inch of the scene. Lifeless bodies filled tables, and laid stacked on the ground. Empty eyes. But not nearly as much blood as last time. Why didn't I know she was there? White fire returned, consuming Oya's chest. Then she was cold. Half a dozen screens came into view. Veins snaked across agitated hands, flicking from one to the next. Oya didn't understand the symbols. They weren't common. Neither were they her precious Ondo. The Kajoma's face reflected off the screen's surfaces. Curses leapt around, leaving Oya panting for air. That woman's face wasn't happy, but that was fine. Neither was she. Tano laid on an incline cot. She couldn't have learned about them. Closing the curtains, Oya returned to her twilight beach. From there she reached out to every guardian, and every charge, all who were whole. Golden brown hands combed through unnatural hair, turning it black with streaks of sunshine, and stretching it long past her hips. Those same hands smoothed over her face. When they parted, her eyes were black with gold specks again. Last thing to change were her clothes. Ragged, worn shorts replaced the exquisite slack she'd been given, and a simple wrap tied over one shoulder now covered her, instead of the rich yellow blouse. She missed her simple clothes, but that's not what was available on the islands. Neither was she particularly picky. Tanan, Yi, Mr. Charlie. One after another she called, pulling them before her. Kato, Shan, Ozar, and whoever holds Iinami's transfer. 3 men, 3 women, and a small child holding a faded pitcher. Oya approached the child, leaning down to eye level. "Are you safe right now?" Tears flooded out. "They don't know I escaped." It was disgusting. How much food till you're satisfied? Bony hands barreled into his belly. Why wouldn't his body stop complaining? His muscles constantly screamed to move, and his stomach to be fed. How could there be too much energy inside him and not enough fuel? Ferdinand's feet ran faster. Hunger grew each day. After a month... Stay in control. Think about something else. Thanks to all the energy, he caught up and was now ahead. Everything was done for this block and the next one, including projects. Sleep was unnecessary and counterproductive, allowing him to finish the analysis of the soil samples Agia sent and report back in a matter of days. The soil samples. Irritation prickled every nerve. It was definitely sabotage, and he had his suspicions who. Proving anything wouldn't be easy, but he'd find the saboteur. The growl from his stomach was so loud and long, it felt to echo around the trees with his footsteps. Shut up, you don't need anything. The 2-hour run with Oya was nice. She did a wonderful job distracting him, but she left him. His heart twisted along with his stomach. Who else does she have to play with? Ferdinan stopped himself. It was good. She needed to find more friends. She needed better people than him. But without her next to him, tears blurred his vision. This wasn't good enough. Move faster. The moon hung low ahead. Morning's light clawed at the horizon, but the stars still shone brilliantly. Faster, outrun the sun. His stomach reached out and clutched at every organ, squeezing them, pulling the skeleton to his knees and rolling him across the ground. It didn't hurt, but it didn't feel right. Ah! Balling up tightly, Ferdinan rocked himself with his toes, but his body refused to straighten. Ah, fine, I'll feed you. His stomach didn't release him, so he fought past it. The hope was to run the rest of the way to his suite, but a mile in, Ferdinan found himself on his knees again. His stomach took over his mind. All he could think of was food. Activating the cuffs, he flew. Only one thing existed. A puff of cold air patted his face. Shaky, bony hands reached out. The ceiling was nothing more than a blur. Rubbing his eyes cleared his vision, but left his golden hands moist. What was that? Something woke Zephyr, but he wasn't sure what. A window slamming shook his nerves. Sliding over to his door, he listened. Soft clinks danced on the other side. What's going on? Leon's never awake this early. Slowly he turned the handle and cracked open the door. Ferdinan? What's he doing? Zephyr slipped through the narrow opening for a better look at the kitchen. Bony hands clawed at the fridge's insides. What's happening? Inching forward, my rite of ascension ceremony. It was exactly like this that night. Shoving food into his face faster than he could chew, or swallow, Ferdinan indiscriminately grabbed whatever was in front of him. That day played side by side with the present. Ferdinan? No response came, so Zephyr moved closer. Ferdinan, stop. No response, not even a flinch. The prince might as well have been a ghost. What do I do? Zephyr stood helpless as his commands were ignored. Physically restraining his cousin earned him an elbow to the ribs, cracking one in the process. How? How's he that strong? Ferdinan, stop this now, look at me. Gagging spurred Zephyr to lunge for the trash can and force it into his cousin's hands. Ferdinan fought until food charged up the skeleton's throat. Coughing and sputtering, painful retching, Zephyr watched in horror as his cousin's body rejected everything forced into it. Time froze. Trapped in the nightmare. Trapped, until Ferdinan slid to the floor, fighting for air. What do I do? Pain shot through his side when he crouched next to the skeleton. Are you okay? Labored panting stole Ferdinand's attention. Exhausted, near-animal eyes locked on with Zephyr's, freezing both to the spot. Blue crystals widened, screaming silently. Blinking broke the spell, holding the prince and his cousin. But Ferdinan was gone before Zephyr could react. Black turned to gray. Colors filled the sky. Zephyr should be in the middle of his morning run, not returning to his suite in failure. That didn't happen, did it? It couldn't have. But opening the door, food containers laid scattered along the kitchen floor, and an unpleasant scent wafted through the air. What do I do? He had no idea how many times he asked himself this, but it was his fault. Still, I wasn't trained for this. What do I do? A click from the door's latch interrupted Zephyr's thoughts. John stepped in, confused at the scene he surveyed. He's looking for Ferdinan. What do I do? What do I say? Good morning, Zephyr. What happened? He's not here. The prince's mind whirled, unable to pull away from the mess he'd caused. The growing giant brought a hand down on Zephyr's shoulder and turned him around. What happened? His rib didn't like that, but the prince couldn't break away from the concern radiating down at him. Should I tell John? It was disgusting and troublesome, but the Dinta's in charge of feeding him. Is John not offering him enough? But last night, it looked as if his cousin hadn't eaten in a month. Zephyr? Words poured from his mouth, every detail. What am I doing? Why am I saying all this? And when had he decided to? But the words felt like they were being pulled out of him, and he didn't have a choice. He left hours ago. I tried running after him, but I couldn't find him. That was a lie, but no one would believe he couldn't catch his cousin, broken rib or not. The growing giant stood just as stunned as Zephyr felt, Those words were hard to believe, but the messy floor and lingering odor of vomit attested to them. Have you informed anyone? Just you. Zephyr hugged himself. Don't know what to do. Are you okay? Worried chocolate brown eyes looked down on his much smaller ally. You look shocked. It's not the first time. Why did I say that? What? When he was 6. Stop talking. A sigh of relief escaped John. Thank you, Zephyr. Nearly 10 years ago. How many times did it happen and no one notice? It took the Dinta rummaging around the kitchen before Zephyr realized his guest wasn't intent on leaving. What are you doing? Your trash. I'll be passing by the disposal anyway. It stinks. You don't have to do that. Zephyr pinched his nose and threw his hand down. Sticking a new liner in, John grabbed the half-full one he removed. I've been cleaning this up for almost a year now. It doesn't faze me anymore.